The recent PPI and CPI reports have left me wondering, inflation? What inflation? As some of you know, I won the 2021 World Cup of Futures trading, and part of the reason of that is because of my deep understanding of inflation and knowing it was about to take off in 2021. I don't see that now, and I just have myself sitting here wondering why more people don't see it. So let's dive into the numbers.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can.
Okay, all joking aside, let's dig into the numbers. I'm right here at the source of the numbers, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. I recommend everybody to go and dive deeper in these numbers on their own, but I want to highlight a couple important things here. First off, just off of the press release here, this is what we're going to be hitting on here, is these major categories. You'll see here, energy had a 3.7% decline. That's very important. And let me tell you why in the next couple of charts. So if we dig deeper into the numbers, and all this data is there in every report out there, you can see here, I'm not a huge fan of month-over-the-month numbers, but that's what's getting reported more often. Here in this middle category, we have the year-over-year changes. And as you can see, as we drill down on this, there is a lot of categories that are actually seeing declines in price instead of increases in price. And inflation is the rate of change. We don't actually expect prices to start heavily going down again in the future, with the exception of energy, and we'll get into that in a second. But as I was saying here, lots of negative numbers. But here is the important piece that I want to highlight to everybody about why we are not going to see inflation over the next 12 months. Energy is down 12%, call it, and down month over month as well. Everyone who's filled up their gas tank knows that gas prices have gone down. This is actually one of the key components of inflation and what truly causes inflation to increase. Where have we seen increases in inflation? We've seen it in the cost of shelter. But if your rent hasn't gone up, your mortgage hasn't changed, this inflation measure hasn't hit you. And the other big area has been transportation, car repair, and more specifically, car insurance increases have gone up. So go out and shop your insurance rates if you haven't, because you could be pushing those down lower. But if we dive deeper, this is where I want to highlight why energy prices are the most important thing for everybody to look at. Really, the rest of the data is noise. Here is the 12-month inflation numbers for you. And you can see here, basically from 2009 to 2020, inflation, we just couldn't get off of that around 2%. Sometimes we're above it, sometimes we're below it. But why did we have some of these dips and these changes? If we add the cost of energy, you will quickly see energy drives inflation. When the cost of energy goes up, inflation increases. When the cost of energy goes down, inflation decreases. This is classic, keep it simple, stupid. Don't get lost in all the other data points. The Trump administration is focused on lowering the cost of energy in the United States. This will drive down inflation, period. It is really statistically impossible for us to have high inflation if energy costs are going down and being held low. One last thing to look at that shows this to you. This is showing the PPI. I was just showing CPI. And here is the recent CPI numbers. The PPI numbers were actually negative for the month of April. No one is reporting about this and telling this. This is where we have an advantage in the market when we take the time to dive deeper into these numbers. But I know what everybody's saying out there. All I'm hearing about is how inflation is going to increase, and there's all this data saying we're going to have higher inflation in the future. Let's dive into those numbers and why they're flawed next. All right, as I was saying, everyone out there is like, well, Kevin, I keep hearing about inflation reports that say inflation is going to be higher in the future. And this is where we have an advantage if we want to be honest, data-driven traders. People's political opinions are corrupting what they call the soft data reports, which are really just surveys filled out by people. And the main one comes from the University of Michigan. I'm starting with this Cinnamon report. This Cinnamon report highlights basically over the last 9-10 years how the respondents of these reports, their opinions change depending on their political affiliation and what is going on with who is elected in the office. One of the key things I want to show you overall is just sentiment is down, period, over the last 10 years, regardless of political party. And I think that has something to do with the media and their portrayal of everything as well. But you say, okay, Kevin, I get it. Republicans are happier when their president is in office and vice versa. What does this have to do with inflation? This has a direct correlation to what I consider now to be the corrupt reports coming from the University of Michigan on their inflation expectations. Here's the breakdown of the University of Michigan inflation report. It is currently showing an expectation of inflation of 6.5% 12 months from now. We just talked about their low energy prices and this not being possible. But what is going on deeper in this report? Right here, the election hit and the Democrats instantly reversed their opinion on the report. They now believe, filling out this University of Michigan report, that there's going to be 8% inflation 12 months from now. That is impossible unless we see a spike in energy prices. And nobody is talking about a spike in energy prices. They are fully corrupting the report with their political bias. I'd say the same political bias exists on the Republicans filling out the report as well, because I don't think a 0.4% inflation expectation is realistic either. It's probably a little more likely if you take the 6.5 and the 4 and cut it down the middle. You know something? Inflation has basically been between 2 and 3% for the last 10 years, with the exception, as we just highlighted in the earlier reports, of the Biden administration. So let's hit on this real quick. Let's jump back. We have the Democrats who say inflation is going to be at 8%. They were claiming right now would be at 4.2, 5.4. Currently, we're at 2.3% inflation, folks. All items. Less food and energy, we're a little bit higher. Inflation is exactly where we want it. The Fed's goal is 2%. You're never going to hit the 2% number exactly. And just in case it comes out in the future where someone's comparing us to how they measure inflation in Europe, we'd actually be below 2% if we measured inflation the same way as the central banks in Europe do. So, once again, we don't have inflation coming in the next 12 months. Soft data reports are being corrupted by people's political biases on both sides. Inflation is actually right where the Federal Reserve wants it. But there is going to be an opportunity over the next few months for the media to highlight an increase in inflation. This is going to be caused because there's a bias, not bias in numbers, but just there's going to be some hard data to lap over the 12-month period. People who understand the data know this is going to occur, but it's going to give you an opportunity for the media to be able to cherry pick stats like they have been for the last 3 months to try to make you believe that we have inflation in the economy. I'm giving you opportunity now to be able to prepare for when that comes. So with all that said, it has come back to how we started things off today.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs. You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we go.
Don't let the media and the reporting out there fool you. Inflation? What inflation? There is no inflation coming in the next 12 months as long as energy prices stay low. Good luck with your trading, and I'll see you next time.